Hey there, for this video I really wanted to go back to kind of my roots with building miniatures, because I started with cardboard because I found it such an easy thing to work with. It's an amazing medium and it just boosts your confidence, especially if you're like me starting out and you have no idea what you were doing. It's just a great thing, and when you make mistakes it adds to the character of your building when you make something like a shack. So I hope that you have a go at this if you haven't worked with cardboard before, because it's really worth it. It's a great thing, and it's a great thing to work with. So I hope you find this tutorial useful, and I hope you enjoy the video. I just used some suitable cardboard, the right strength, and there's 2 side pieces, 3 front pieces and 1 back panel. That piece I slid under and had to just glue in because my measurements were wrong. I lost the plot when I was drawing it up. But I've put it on a piece of paper so you can just pause it and use my rough measurements. Please do use my measurements with a degree of skepticism. I'm not very good with it. I glued the pieces together just with some hot glue and then gave it a really quick coat of black spray paint. And then I'm ready to put a little lid on it and then put these little strips on, just cut from some more suitable cardboard, a little thinner than the ones I used for the body. Make sure you cut them running down the corrugations, otherwise you'll have like a crinkle cut effect on your boards and you don't want that. When you're cutting this, just be cautious. If you get any anomalies in the ruler that you use, it will jump it and go straight onto your finger. I've done it a couple of times. So just be cautious. This glue that I'm putting on, it's really cheap, nasty stuff. It's too watery. I started with the back of the building. I always start with the back in case I do have issues with something. So that way you kind of get your problems in the rear and they're not so noticeable. If you use watery glue, it can buckle the cardboard. So be careful what kind of glue you do use. I changed it to a thicker glue after this one, because this one's just, it was bad. Just lay your strips of cardboard down as they would lay on the building. Don't worry about covering over the door, because you can just cut it out when it's dry. You'll see the light going through it. And then just sort of move the pieces around, and if they're uneven, that's pretty much a good thing. Weigh it down and let it dry. This is the front that I used a thicker glue for. They even adhered better, they dried faster, easier to cut. This glue's, it's not a wood glue, but it's like a wood glue. I don't know, it's like some sort of upgrade. It's really great, it's like a paste. I suppose Mod Podge should be pretty good stuff for this as well. That worked very nicely. It comes out very strong. Very, very quick to do also. Once it's completely dry, just snip the extra off with scissors at the corner of each point of the building. This is such a quick method of putting on boards on a building. I like it very much. I used a pen to run down all the boards. I had some footage of this. I don't know what happened to it, I'm sorry. But I just ran it down the boards just to rough them up a bit. That's most of the building done now. Just do the roof. Using quite a thick cardboard for this one. I picked a cardboard that's already got fairly heavy corrugations in it. I use a paintbrush handle just to keep sort of moving and pushing and almost softening the cardboard. If little holes get poked into it accidentally, don't worry, they're rust holes. So yeah, make it work, it's good. I hot glued these on just to save a bit of time. And at the peak of the roof, I've just used a strip of blue cardboard, only because the cardboard was just the right thickness. It wasn't quite paper, but it had no corrugations in it, so it sat nicely. I just sort of poked the brush into the bits of the roof, pressed it down with my fingers, and gave it another coat of the black paint. The chimney I just roughly cut from insulation foam and then just marked up a straightforward brick pattern into it. Just using a pencil just to etch it in nicely. After that, I roughed it up a bit with my little lump of concrete that I use. This is more really quick stuff. Looks good. And then onto the brown ink. Don't forget to do the back of the top of the chimney. That'll be protruding up from the roof. I almost forgot to do it myself. Wee bit of this just to get into all the little nooks and crannies of it. I did some very basic brick colours and then a dry brush of grey. After that, more brown ink just to make it dirty. This entire project is basically about dirtying it up, then lightening it up and dirtying it up again. So that's the whole process really. I ended up putting a little bit of a wash of a reddish brown over this when I was done, because it just looked kind of a little too grey. The camera doesn't help either, the light makes it look even greyer than it is. Still looks good though. For the first coat on the boards, I just used this reddish brown and some black because I want to darken it up. It's going to actually darken on its own anyway because of the black beneath it. When you paint this, make sure you don't do horizontal brush strokes. You'll get inside those little cracks and lines and you'll lose the definition. Same with the roof, just paint against the corrugations so you don't fill them in. It's very shiny looking because I use really cheap paint. If you use good quality paint, it probably won't be quite as shiny as this. Now it's time to lighten it up again. I'm going to use the previous colour that I just used, and then I'm going to add what is supposed to be a yellow ochre to it. This is a cheap brand, so it's not quite yellow ochre, but it's still lightening it up. And just give it the same treatment as you did the previous coat. It just starts pulling up all the boards, and anything that's prominent will stand out. That's got a sheen on it, but it looks like wood, which is what I was after, so that's a good thing. I'm going to now use this sort of a creamy white. It looks white under the camera, but it's not. And then the last colour that I used, I'm going to add it to it because I like to incorporate colours with each other. It keeps everything tied in together. And then a little bit of black just to break up that stark light colour. Just kind of empty your brush and give it a bit of a dry brush sort of thing going on with it. A little bit heavier than a dry brush. This looks very, very light, but you'll find it doesn't dry looking as white as it does right now. Geez, I do that really fast. It's weird seeing that back. When I think about dry brushing and watch people on YouTube dry brushing, they do it so lovingly, like they're caressing a newborn kitten, and I see myself doing it back. It's like a bull in a petting zoo. It's so roughly done. I need to work on my dry brushing skills. They're so crude. It works for something rough like this though. I mean, this is a really rough project. You can really see it picking up the definition. You can even see those pen lines beneath it. It looks like weathered paint, which I really, really like. And that's the basic structure and first layers of paint done. Very, very basic stuff. For the roof, I'm using sort of a greyish colour because I want it to look metallic somewhat. This is more of a flat paint, this one, so it won't have that sheen on it so much. And again, with the horrible dry brushing, it's so heavy-handed, but lucky it's a rough project and it works. And again, just avoid going up and down those corrugations. You will lose them, and then it defeats the purpose of having the corrugations. You also want to make sure that your painting is uneven. Just sort of dab here and there heavier after your first go at it, just so it looks like there's, less rust in certain areas. You want uneven patterns so the eye doesn't pick up on things being perfect, or it won't look natural anymore. It's starting to really look rustic now. I did that with air quotations. It's rustic, but it looks good. That roof looks quite metallic as well. With the first layer of rust, I've just put some burnt sienna down, really lightly stippled. You just want to really be cautious with it. You don't want to go crazy with it. You want it to look as natural as possible. And just very lightly stipple it around, sort of sporadically. If you can, avoid making patterns. It's hard to avoid making patterns, especially when you start zoning out when you're doing something. So just sort of stop and check yourself now and then when you do this sort of thing. You can even make different sheets of the corrugated iron with a pencil, just ruling down it to separate each one on the roof. It actually looks pretty good, so I went ahead and drew them in like this. And I used a red ochre for the second layer, just to start deepening the rust colour, and the redness just sort of deepens how rusted it would be. You can see that line that I drew across with the pencil just at the top there. It actually looks really good. I only drew it over twice, but it really looks like separated sheets. I like it. I end up using a cream soft lead pencil just to really start picking up any highlights and make it just look a little bit rougher. I mean, dry brushing, you do the same thing, but you've seen my dry brushing technique. I didn't want to wreck it, so I thought I'd have a go with a pencil instead. And it looks nice. I just sort of do long circular motions so I don't go making lines in it, but it comes out nice. I also used a dark brown and a reddish brown. Yeah, I don't even know what colour this is, but it's rusty colour and it looks good. Just sort of finer detail. It's fun using these pencils. I don't know. I really enjoy doing fine detail on anything, so using the pencils is just kind of an added thrill to it, really. But it looks great. I like these pencils a lot. For the boards out on the veranda, I just used some coffee stirrers stained with ink, a little bit of grey on top, and then this cream pencil just to bring out the grain in the wood. You don't need to do anything to these popsicle sticks because it's already wood. As you can see the difference with the cream, just from having the plain grey paint on. And then I use black of the same pencil and or same brand of pencil, and just dirty up either end so it looks more dirty and weathered. I also did this to the window trimming, doors, and the little post out the front that holds the veranda up. The awning up, yeah, not the veranda. Ink time for everything. It's going to tie everything together and make everything look aged and dirty. You just apply this ink anywhere that grime and build-up would occur. Basically around the edges of everything, the windows, doors, the base, underneath the roof, around the chimney, just anywhere like that, and just sort of leave the open spaces a little bare. You can water this ink down if you are concerned about it looking too dark, but you'll find it dries very rapidly and it dissipates in colour. So it's one of those things you kind of need to use it to practice using it to see how it actually works and absorbs. But it's a beautiful thing. It so rapidly alters the look of the work. It's amazing. I also used it along the lines that I had created with a pencil for the lines down the corrugated iron. I tried to get this to run. I did it off camera because it needed more water and it just wouldn't do as it was told, so I fiddled with it later. But you just play around with it. There's a little post made from a little piece of dowel with the brown ink, grey, cream pencil and black pencil just to make it all dirty and grimy looking. And I put a little bit of ink to stain where I was going to seat it. That's such a snug fit. I was impressed. I imagined something that worked. And there's the windows all put in, or the window frames. I dirtied them up with a little bit of black acrylic with the brown ink because it wasn't dirty enough. It was almost giving a reddish hue to the greyish white on the actual window trim. And then I put it on the windows and around the windows so everything starts to tie together and you don't have pieces free floating on the actual building. It just grounds everything together. You see how grubby it looks now, but it works really nicely. Looks very, very aged. And now just a bit of a cream for another final, very light dry brushing. Even this, I struggled with it. I don't know, I think my brush was too wet or something and I had to keep fixing it. But yeah, tie it back in so you just give that final highlight so you pick up anything that will just pick up light and make it look really nice and aged. And that's it. Really, really basic stuff, but it comes out looking like wood, which is some sort of irony, I'm sure, being made from cardboard. But it's great. I really enjoy doing it, and I hope you found something useful in this because it's a great building block for learning how to build. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.